You dog! Damn it!
Welcome to the motherfucking We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Our continued coverage of MVP's most recent signing, one of their bigger signings, the migration of Michaela Mayer from Top Rank over to MVP. She reacted to it by saying, "I want to thank my Top Rank boxing family for an amazing 9 years together. I absolutely would not be in this position today if it wasn't for their guidance. They helped develop me into a 3-weight world champion, and I will be forever grateful to Todd Duboff. Thank you for taking that meeting with me all those years ago, for believing in me, and for believing in women's boxing. Excited for this next chapter, the best chapter yet." We talked about this signing from the Michaela Mayer angle, and what options are now available to her as a result of signing to MVP. In this segment, we're going to talk about this from a different angle, the angle of those affected by this, her contemporaries, her rivals, foreign and domestic.
Yes.
What does this mean for them? What does this mean for Top Rank? Does this herald their overall withdrawal from women's boxing? They still have at least one fighter I can think of under contract. Perla Basaldua. Young unbeaten up-and-comer, only 20 years old. The Top Rank signed last year, looking to expand their stable of Valkyries. I think she's still with them, and if she is, she would be the only female fighter they currently have on the roster. Only having one female fighter in the stable, that's tantamount to being out of the sport of women's boxing.
I mean, it certainly looks like it.
Michaela was over there at Top Rank for close to 10 years, and they did an amazing job of developing her as a fighter, as they often do. Their keen eye for talent, for grooming and developing fighters, they have the best vetting process in the industry for me. They're the gold standard. But now she's changed her decorum, and it doesn't just affect her. It also affects her contemporaries, her rivals, her domestic rival in Alicia Baumgartner, who's come under fire in recent months, recent years, for not fighting in a big fight following her big win over Michaela Mayer. People are growing impatient. Immediately after that fight, there was a demand for a second fight, for a rematch. Not just from Michaela, but from the spectators in what is the spectator sport. Needless to say, they didn't get it. Nope. Though with Michaela Mayer now migrating over there, being on the same side of the street as Alicia Baumgartner, rematch talks are sure to kick off, sure to ensue, now that they're both under the same banner. And if Alicia doesn't deliver them that, the criticisms will continue to rain down. The Jennifer Mirandas and Layla Boudoirs of the world will not suffice for the growing mob, the Bomi Reishins. There's mounting pressure on Alicia Baumgartner that I think is now amplified by the presence of Michaela at MVP, because since their fight, Michaela has fought in meaningful fights against meaningful opponents like Natasha Jonas, Sandy Ryan 2 times, more recently Mary Spencer at a new weight. All the while, have you looked around and have you seen what people have been saying? Since Alicia's anti-doping fiasco and what was her rematch with Christina Linardatu, the only woman to have a recorded win against her, she's fallen out of favor with some people, and over time, people are growing more and more impatient because they want to see her in there with somebody good. Either Michaela Mayer or Caroline Dubois, who's closer in weight. She's got a domestic rival, a transatlantic rival, both fighting under the same promotion as her, to where there's no reason that she shouldn't be in a big fight. They were already growing impatient, but the presence of Michaela Mayer at MVP is going to amplify the pressure now, the pressure on Alicia. This also places pressure on Chantel Kunran, who since the second Katie Taylor fight, she hasn't been up to much. She left Matchroom for Queensbury, almost completely falling out of visibility in her stint over there that only really lasted about 2 fights, and she's already made her MVP debut. She's had at least 1 fight under the banner, headed to her second, and at a new weight, junior middle, for what is the newly vacated WBO title that Michaela Mayer left behind following her win over Mary Spencer. Because Michaela's at 147 and because Chantel is at 154, with no intention of staying up there, there's going to be mounting pressure on Chantel to fight in a meaningful fight, because it can't be all about Katie Taylor all the time. She's about to retire, and when she does, what are you going to do? You got to fight somebody else. Somebody good. And Michaela is right there. One thing you can give Michaela that you can't give every other fighter, even some of the good ones, is she doesn't make her entire career about one fight with one fighter, one moment.
Like Chantel.
No, Michaela doesn't sit around feeling sorry for herself. She gets up, gets back on the saddle, and moves on to the next big-name opponent. She makes things happen. Us Californians, that's how we roll.
You're not from California.
The point is that Michaela isn't sat by the phone waiting for a big opportunity to land on her lap. She gets out there and she makes things happen. Chantel, she's gonna have to show that same initiative. The thing I don't often hear said about Michaela Mayer is she is the common denominator in some of the spicier fights in women's boxing, whether it's the rivalry with Alicia or the shootout with Natasha, the war with Sandy.
She really is a credit to the sport. One of the more entertaining fighters out there. I remember when she first started, she was more of a boxer and more of a cerebral fighter, but over time, she became one of the more gutting and gritty and fan-friendly fighters you can put on television.
So it's no wonder that MVP made a conscious decision to add her to their already robust stable of Valkyries. In men's junior middleweight news, WBC junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora says, "I'm gonna go in there and rip his head off." Sebastian is all business. Heading into the Keith Thurman fight, Sebastian looks to grow his brand with a big win over Keith Thurman. But is beating an over-the-hill Keith Thurman really going to do that?
When the fight is behind a paywall?
Sebastian Fundora is set to put his WBC junior middleweight title on the line against former welterweight champion Keith Thurman on March 28th and quickly catches up with Fight Hub TV to discuss the bout, facing Thurman, who he was once a fan of, and why he's willing to take on all comers at 154.
Something you often hear Sebastian say, but something you don't often see Sebastian do. Remember how he shied away from a fight with Xander Zayas?
Supposedly willing to take on all comers as long as it makes business sense. For myself, I expect to win. I think this fight right here will put me in a different stage in my life. I'm a world champion already, but I think a fight like this could make me a superstar. He's a Hall of Famer.
Keith Thurman is a Hall of Fame fighter.
For sure. I think that's already stamped in the boxing history books, but a win over him will put me in there too.
I already talked about this earlier this month, that I don't see what Keith Thurman has done throughout his boxing career that would get him a Hall of Fame induction. Frankly, I think Sebastian is just saying that to amplify his victory over him so that he can pretend he beat a Hall of Fame fighter.
I'm gonna go in there and rip his head off, just like he's going in to do mine. He's just another opponent to me when it comes to the ring. After the fight is over, shake his hand. Boxing's kind of different in that way, where you're going to see past your hero and you're going to have to slay him yourself. Sebastian, on his future goals in the junior middleweight division, we'll see, because the paths have been changing, We've been unified for a while, and they took away the belt with the WBO, but we're still WBC champion when opportunities present themselves fiscally as well, because this is a prize fighter sport. We just gotta see where we're at, because there's a lot of good names here, and it just has to make sense, because we'll fight everybody.
So he says. But he ran like a stray cat under a car. When his mandatory came a knockin', his mandatory, Xander Zayas, how do you think Xander got the brown belt? He's supposed to fight Sebastian Fundora for it, but Sebastian dropped it.
Keep saying that he's willing to fight everybody, but, that seldom ever happens. And the way that he's talking about this Keith Thurman fight, you understand that the fighters have a fight to sell.
Oh yeah, he's gonna see. He wants to bring it. Like you said, he needs to do what he always have done. He needs to be Sebastian Fundora, and he's confident and he feels like he's growing, but he made a great statement. A lot of OGs aren't here. Different generation, different times. Before I became champion, I had many ex-world champions that they put me in the ring with. There was still OGs holding it down. He's gonna see what an OG can do, and the name is one time for a reason, not a short season. March 28th, Fundora's going to find out.
It's his job to try to sell me this fight.
But it's not my job to buy it and buy into the hype, because Keith Thurman is 37 years old, sparsely active, and largely irrelevant to the junior middleweight division, where he's done absolutely nothing. Sebastian says that he's going to go in there and rip his head off. Well, that's the least you can do to a fighter who's that much smaller and that much older than you are. Create a viral moment. Give the audience something they've never seen before, because Keith Thurman,
He's never been knocked out.
he's only got one recorded loss in 32 professional bouts, which I think would be a lot more if he didn't periodically take 2- and 3-year stints of inactivity.
And if he wasn't such a picky eater.
Last in action, in March of last year, opposite the ring, Brock Jarvis, who he stopped in the 3rd round of a contest scheduled for 10 that took him all the way to Australia for an opportunity. They fought at junior middleweight, but we all know that Brock Jarvis is not a true junior middleweight. That's a guy who's fought as low as 135. Thus, knocking him out at 154 doesn't mean much and doesn't now legitimize Keith Thurman as a contender at junior middle. So the night of, the smaller, older fighter will also have ring rust to shake off, to where the least Sebastian can do in this situation, as the reigning champion and the fighter with all the advantages, is knock the guy out.
Keep training hard, champ. Go run that obstacle course a few more times, pimp. It's going to be a great fight. He already knows, man. You know, he knows and he don't know. You know, all he knows is Keith Thurman's another fighter. I'm going to train like any other fighter.
Create a viral moment. Give the audience something they've never seen before, because what they've never seen is Keith Thurman knocked out.
I view that as the bare minimum.
Find it quite nauseating how people are talking about Keith Thurman going into this fight like it's 2016 or 2017.
It's not.
How they're talking about this guy like it's a Hall of Famer, or like this is a money fight. Let me tell you something. Even the most hardcore PBC fans, the most hardcore Haymanites, are not going to go in their wallets to purchase this pay-per-view.
This ain't a money fight.
He's trying to simplify it for himself, you know. He don't want to feel the weight on the shoulders. It can be heavy being champ. I've been there, champ. I've been there. I know what it's like. It's all good, man. Just train hard and get ready, baby. We're weeks away, days away. The final countdown is soon. It's going down March 28th.
Keith Thurman has been irrelevant for years now, and Sebastian Fundora has yet to go on to become the money man in the junior middleweight division. So you put these two guys together and tuck them behind a paywall, not a lot of people are sure to hop over it.
Nope.
I don't give Keith Thurman much of a shot in this fight, because as the noticeably smaller and older fighter who likes to get on his toes and move around, walk his opponent into a punch, where normally that works, I don't think it can work against a guy this much taller and longer than you are. You get on a good foot and try to stay on the outside of Sebastian, you're a sitting duck.
It's target practice.
You need to be close to hit Sebastian Fundora with your shots, but he doesn't need to be close to you. So the more space you create, the harder you make it on yourself and the less you give him to worry about, since you're too far out of range to land anything.
But he's not.
When a discrepancy in size is that wide, it calls for the shorter fighter to actually come forward on the taller, longer guy, play him close to the chest where he doesn't have as much room to work and where you can smother his punches while getting in with punches of your own. I don't know that Keith Thurman's gonna do that.
It's not really his forte. That's not how he normally fights.
Sebastian, because of his physical dimensions, puts any man opposite the ring in a very awkward position. More so now that he's actually moving his feet and using his height, using his length, using his jab, making himself harder to get to.
Well, it's smart.
And I just can't trust that Keith Thurman, with so little experience at this weight and at his age, is going to have the right strategy for Sebastian Fundora. Him even taking this fight on.
Coming off a year layoff at that.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. Him taking on this fight is an act of desperation when you consider that in the last 3 years, he's only fought once.
He needs money.
So this is what he's got to do to get it, but I don't imagine this is going to end well for Keith Thurman. In men's heavyweight news, Deontay Wilder responds to Alexander Usyk dropping him from 3-fight retirement plan. Deontay Wilder was shocked that Alexander Usyk suggested he is now out of the running for a fight before the champion retires. Usyk was locked in talks to face Wilder after snubbing fight interest from Fabio Wardley earlier in the year, going as far as dropping the brown belt and handing it over to Fabio.
Why would Alexander Usyk, of all people, who made a name for himself, challenging champions on their own home turf and beating them there, taking their titles, all of a sudden start handing over belts, the belts that he's worked so hard to collect.
Talks between Usyk and Wilder failed to materialize into a showdown, with the Bronze Bomber now instead facing Derek Chisora early next month. The Ukrainian will now take on kickboxing legend Rico Verhoeven in a lucrative title defense in Egypt in May, and he named Verhoeven as one of his planned 3 fights before retiring. The list also included the winner of Wardley versus Dubois' world title clash, now Fabio might be back in the mix, and a trilogy with Tyson Fury, leaving Wilder isolated from contention, and the American was pretty stunned to have been snubbed, suggesting he may have intimidated the current title holder.
That ain't it.
He told Daily Mail Boxing, "Oh nice, no Deontay Wilder in there? He's changed." Courses. Most times when people meet me and see me, an intimidation factor comes along. We will see if it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't crush my dreams. I'm still here, whether he's here or not. No matter who is in there, I'm not here for any other guy in the division. I'm here for what I want to do in my life and what I want to do in this business, not for Usyk. Usyk's snub could come as a blow if he is to realize his dream of returning to world level, but he will need to pay full attention to the dangerous veteran Derek Chisora first, who is out for blood in what could be his final fight. Ultimately for Wilder, it is an opportunity to try and continue his journey back to his winning ways against Chisora, and it could well be a more realistic option given he is now 40 years old and shown new vulnerabilities in recent fights. Wilder simply suggested negotiations were too slow with Usyk, and time is ticking on his own career, so he made the decision to move on. He told Talk Sport, "Although we were in talks with Usyk, we still didn't have a day to replace. We were still scrambling around."
Let's make a long story short, folks. It's not even that Alexander Usyk snubbed Deontay Wilder, it's that the powers that be snubbed Deontay Wilder. It's that they couldn't find a financier for the fight.
Given Deontay Wilder's recent run of form against Joseph Parker, against Zhilei Zhang, those losses, and that the only way for Wilder to get back in the winner's bracket was to fight a club fighter in Tyrell Herndon.
They didn't want to pay for the fight. Usyk probably thought that Turkey El Sheikh would pick it up, but he didn't. He instead was willing to pay for him to fight a kickboxer. Wilder, he's fighting Derek Chisora.
It's not a snub, and it's not a duck. I believe that Alexander Usyk was willing to fight Deontay Wilder. He's got nothing to worry about in that guy.
See how he's been looking?
It's that when push came to shove, even though the two teams were willing to make the fight, they didn't have anybody to pay for it. And that's what it all boils down to. It'll take more than a win over Tyrell Herndon in Wichita, Kansas to convince the powers that be that Wilder's worth the millions upon millions of dollars he's going to want for an Usyk fight.
No, if he can beat Derek Chisora in the UK, then maybe he can get back in the mix. And Usyk, at 39 years old, he's fortifying his retirement fund. He will fight whoever Turkey is willing to pay him to fight. So if Turkey don't want to pay him to fight Wilder, he's not going to fight Wilder.
And it's as simple as that. It seems like every other week I have to remind people that Usyk has more than paid his dues, that at this stage in his career, he's entitled to have a bit of fun. He's entitled to take it easy. He's entitled to focus on his retirement.
To make sure that he can, and to make sure that he can do so comfortably. So I don't blame him.